For a brand to claim radical transparency and ethical factories and labor, it's crazy that they're treating their workers unethically, firing workers unethically, and exude a lot of discriminatory and racist behavior in the workplace. All of these messages about how they weren't aware in the past or whatever, like, I call bullshit. Hey everyone, welcome back to Inspiroue. As you can tell from today's title, we are going to be talking about Everlane today, why we should be boycotting them and not supporting or buying from them at this point in time. And until they act and commit to change for these multiple points, I don't condone us supporting them, and I won't support them. So one of them being their racist and discriminatory workplace culture. News about this aired a few days ago on Instagram, so I'll be talking more about that. I also want to touch on their unethical union busting and firing of workers a few months ago, which was already tea that was out, and that's what I mainly spoke about in my last brands I no longer support video. Crazy that there's more tea now. And I also want to expose some of their greenwashing. So they do claim to be an ethical and more sustainable brand, but there are certain collections and fabrics they use and lines that they've come out with that I disagree with. And for me to continue to support them, not only do they have to address everything else, I hope that they also address the greenwashing that's apparent in the way that they produce. So I'll have all the links in the down bar too. I just wanted to share everything that I currently know with you, because it's crazy that, like, even with all of this happening and with everything circulating on Instagram, people are still buying from them. So I hope this video helps. I hope that we can make some noise, because this isn't about canceling anybody. This is about exposing things and demanding change and commitment to change and brands to do better so that we can keep supporting good brands, you know what I mean? Also, shout out thrifted cardigan, thrifted top, wearing my base range joggers that I got from New Classics, which is a sustainable, like, online store that I love, run by Alyssa. Super cozy today. So first thing I want to start off with is the freshest thing, which is about their discriminatory workplace culture. This post came out a few days ago from an account called the ex.wives.club. Basically, it's a group of former employees of Everlane airing their, like, racist or discriminatory experiences at Everlane. There are multiple points. It actually is also a Google Doc. I'll also leave linked below. It's in their Instagram bio. I highly recommend reading through it. First, I want to explain a bit about this post. This is basically their intro to their Google Doc. We, the former Black, POC, and white allied employees, have witnessed and experienced anti-Black behavior, prejudice and advancement of Black and POC employees, bullying, racial and heteronormative supremacy, manipulation, and the intimidation of employees who have attempted to address these issues. Those who dare speak up about terrible management and frustrations with addressing issues like diversity and representation were subdued with excuses, questioned on their loyalty, and fell victim to retaliation. The thing I want to highlight about this, because I think it's important to get this point across, is that these issues were brought up. They were made aware at Everlane. It's not like the Everlane teams and HR and, like, everybody didn't know about them. People tried to speak up, and people tried to be allies to Black and POC people, but instead of being heard and instead of changes being made and those things being addressed, these people were let go or were treated poorly, or it affected how they were perceived and then thus how they performed and how their careers could or could not advance. And this is so frustrating and angering and disappointing, because it is already pretty hard to speak up to a group of white people when you are a minority, whether you're POC, but especially if you're Black. It's so hard to speak up because you risk being seen as sensitive or hard to work with or blah, blah, blah. Like, your reputation could be ruined. And that's exactly what's happening at Everlane. So no matter how much they preach anti-racism and Black Lives Matter on their Instagram page and on their website and with their donations, they don't actually exude that behavior, and they're not doing anti-racist work, and they're not cultivating an environment for anti-racism, because they're not addressing these issues, and they're doing exactly what people fear when they're trying to speak up for Black and POC people. Like, that's insane. So all of these messages about how they weren't aware in the past or whatever, like, I call bullshit. Here are a few of the bullets that I wanted to highlight. I'm gonna say the numbers in case you're reading the doc too. This is number 3. Of the 32 Black female model cards I presented to the CCO, Alexandra Spunt, CCO is Chief Creative Officer, which is C-level, by the way, so that's an exec level right there. For editorial and e-com work, because the company had only hired one half Afro-Latina white model until then, she said no to 31 and a maybe to a half black, half Danish model for e-com. When asked to elaborate, she said their looks are a little too severe for Everlane, too edgy, and that the Everlane girl should be intellectual. If you look at the Everlane site, like, oh my god, the diversity is not good in their models. And employees were trying to make it more diverse, yet the chief creative officer turned the models down. This is point number 4. I heard a table of people, including the CCO Alexandra Spunt and CEO Michael Priesman, at a table discussing doing a future all-trans catalog because it's trending, followed by really loud laughter. So they're trying to pretend like they're woke. I don't know if I can say that word actually. Sorry if I can't. Please let me know what's a better way of saying that. Point 5. On the general company Slack channel, employees have privately berated customers who called for more diversity on social channels in both body and race. There are receipts. So customers have already asked the brand and have voiced our opinions for more diversity, both in size inclusiveness, which is a very big issue, and race. And instead of hearing these people and trying to do better, they're making jokes out of it. Like, what kind of white ass supremacist company is this? Are you kidding me? And then this is point 11. This is the last one I'm gonna share. I worked remotely on Everlane's customer experience team. When a customer wrote in and expressed concern about the thinness of a model in a recent campaign, a worker wrote back and apologized on the company's behalf for perpetuating unhealthy standards for women in the fashion industry, which I think when you're hiring a CX team, you're empowering them to speak up for your brand and for making things right. I think that's such an appropriate response. When someone's calling you out for something, the only reasonable response is to just apologize versus centering it around yourself or bringing up excuses. When they flagged it to their manager fired them, citing that the response was damaging to the company's image. Like, what? That's so crazy. Those are the few examples of real situations that happen at Everlane in their office. And if these aren't enough examples, go read the document. There's like 20 points. Like, even one instance is already enough if it's not correctly addressed. But here, there's a full document, and that shows something about Everlane, what they believe in, how rooted white supremacy is, and how much they don't care at all about diversity. This group has outlined specific things that Everlane can do in order to make this better. One of them was to issue public apologies, and they left a deadline. I think they gave like a week or something, which was yesterday, June 25th, and the CEO said nothing. Obviously, Everlane does not actually care or prioritize anti-racism and diversity, because if they did, they would have made these steps a priority. And given that the deadline has passed and that they were given more than enough time to come up with an apology, and they didn't, like, that shows something. I love that ex.wives.club also highlighted how Everlane can help address their greenwashing. I'm going to speak more to this in that section of the video, but they basically said, hey, hire an external expert, because there's been instances where Everlane uses words like ethical and sustainable, but they slowly back-channeled into those efforts piecemeal through product development. What does that even mean? They also have a point about restructuring, and I think this is really important when you have so many instances of racism in a workplace, and there's 4 bullets under restructure, which is hiring Black executives, keeping employees happy, creating safe spaces, and ensuring anti-racism training is nuanced. So I agree, like, they should hire Black, Indigenous, and POC. Seems like a lot of the issues are coming from C-level, and not just in a diversity and inclusion role. I spoke to this in my last video, how to spot greenwashing and racist brands. I sense that a lot of brands are going to combat call-outs of like lack of diversity by hiring BIPOC people into diversity and inclusion boards or diversity and inclusion roles, and I think that is a great start. But also, you should have diverse representation in your whole team on like marketing, sales, CX, whatever. So I highly recommend reading the full Google Doc. It is laid out really well. It's super informative. It is definitely worth your time to spend just reading through it, because it really helps you understand the like issue at hand, how Everlane has addressed these issues very poorly and in the wrong manner. And it's very reasonable what Ex.Wives.club is asking for, and we need to take this, and I think it's on us to continue to demand change and for this to be addressed as consumers. And I don't think it's okay to let this just fade away with time, because these are really, really like heartbreaking examples of things that could have been addressed and apologized for and amended. So I also want to touch on Everlane's unethical union busting. This happened a few months ago. I also addressed this in my Brands I No Longer Support video, but for those who haven't watched that, I just wanted to talk about it briefly here. I will link an article down below so you can read more. If you're wondering why no one was responding to your support emails or helping you with your delayed shipping notifications or anything like that, it's because Everlane fired like so many CX workers, and it's because of this, I'm pretty sure. Don't quote me on that, but the timing just seemed too convenient for it to be coincidental. Everlane's part-time remote CX team, customer experience team, voiced a plan of unionizing back in December, and then were laid off with the excuse of the pandemic a few months ago. Totally fair for them to want to unionize if they're being treated poorly. I know that in the last video, some of you commented about how unions have pros and cons, and I'm not an expert on any of that. It's just shady from what I know as a human being when you have workers, especially on your support team for a company that cares about radical transparency and ethical factories and ethical labor, when they're saying that they're not like being valued or they want to improve their working conditions, for a brand to deny that when they say they so strongly believe in ethically treating factory workers properly, like why isn't there alignment there? Like shouldn't they care to treat all of their workers ethically? Doesn't make sense to me. Bernie Sanders tweeted out and called Everlane out for this, saying using this health and economic crisis to union bust is morally unacceptable, and he called Everlane to put its fired workers back on payroll and to recognize the Everlane's workers union. In response, the CEO of Everlane was like, I think this is what they posted on their Instagram page. They were like, all of our stores had to shut down, and we didn't just lay off CX workers, we laid off multiple workers across multiple teams, and we're just doing really poorly right now. But in this article, it says Everlane employees said that the layoffs were surprising as the company had informed them recently that business remained strong. So there seems to be a conflict there, or a miscommunication or lying or something. The other shady thing is that Everlane took up legal counsel with someone known for union avoidance when all of this was happening. This seemed like an unethical firing of workers. And even in a pandemic, like I understand why part-time store, like retail associates would have to be laid off, but why are you training store associates to answer support emails? That seems to not make sense to me, considering that CX people have experience responding to customers and dealing with those transactions, but instead you're going to let your customers wait weeks for returns or exchanges or help or responses to their support emails by letting go of a team that said they wanted to unionize and then trying to train store associates whose stores have closed to answer support emails. It seems like the only way to make this right is to do what Bernie Sanders told Everlane to do, which is to put their CX team back on to payroll and to allow them to unionize. Now I want to talk about Everlane's greenwashing. I did a video with them last year covering a lot of their recycled pieces for fall and winter. So they had a recycled down puffer, they had a recycled cashmere, they had this alpaca sweater, all of that. I already addressed this in my last video. When I filmed that video, I really wanted to highlight specific collections that Everlane had that were actually sustainable, that I believed in. But at that time, I was like, there are also other lines that I wasn't really sure about. But my stance is that Everlane provides a more affordable and convenient option for those who would usually and typically shop fast fashion. So I'll touch on this more a bit later, but I really still think that in a dream world, in the perfect world, we would, first of all, stop buying as much as consumers. Second of all, no one would shop fast fashion. Third of all, every single thing, every piece of clothing in the world would be produced ethically. We would all just be supporting small brands that were empowering like artisans to do small batches of product, like using diverse sustainable materials and fibers, not just one big monopoly company making all of these things with like one conglomerate type of organic cotton or something, because like that's not sustainable either. But we don't live in a perfect world. We live in a world where like fast fashion brands still make highest amounts of money, and we live in a world where a lot of consumers will still support brands and buy cheap things that are made unethically by garment workers. So in my mind, I'm always focused on trying to inspire people to shop more consciously, and one of the biggest barriers is cost. And I never know what anyone's situation is. I'm never here to judge, but the way that I see Everlane is, for right now, in this moment in time, based on how most of the consumer population shops for fashion, we need this next baby step of a brand that can offer styles at a certain price, because I don't think that all consumers are going to just drop everything and do all the research and buy 3 pieces a year that are like $300 each that are like actually made ethically and sustainably. I wish that that was the case, but here we are. I'm basically on the Everlane sustainability page right now, and they talk about how they're working to build a transparent and environmentally responsible supply chain. And they've made commitments to no new plastic and certified organic cotton. They also say they strive to use the most sustainable materials, like their denim, which is made at the Satex factory, which I do believe in. They're using renew and reknit, rewool, recashmere, clean silk that's Blue Sign certified. These are all actually really great examples of better fabrics that larger brands can be using. And you can see in my video where I listed certain certifications that you can look for. They have the Blue Sign systems, which means that their dyeing techniques are better. They have the GOTS organic cotton certification, meaning that their organic cotton is certified. They share the factories they partner with. And I think from an ethical labor standpoint, I do trust them. I do trust that the factories that they work with are ethically employing their workers. That is very different than how Everlane treats their actual team of workers unethically. But the two things that I'm seeing are, one, they still produce a lot. They produce probably way too much. Like, I wish they would pivot into a on-demand model, because I think that as consumers, like, I don't care if you're saying you can't afford fashion, but I do believe that we can wait a few weeks instead of trying to get a product instantly, because if we actually care about the product that we're trying to buy, we can pre-order it, and that way a brand like Everlane can create it just based on demand so that there's no waste left over. So that's like the one end where production wise, like, I think that they're actually producing way too many styles, still feeding into this almost like overconsumption, like buying too much behavior. The other thing is the fabrics that they use. I don't think that all of their fabrics are actually sustainable, and I think that's where the greenwashing play primarily comes in for me when it comes to looking at their brand. They have normal cotton products like the Cotton Crew, the most water and chemical intensive fiber out there. I just looked through Everlane's new arrivals and I can already spot like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 products that use unsustainable fabrics. Ready? Easy Chino long short, 98% cotton. Cotton twill short, also normal cotton. The selfie tee, look, normal cotton. What? The ruched air blouse, also 100% cotton. The Izu Chino skirt, also cotton. And then their Japanese Go Weave high neck tank. Triacetate, perfect. And like their long sleeve crew, also cotton. So you can already see, like, those are 7 examples that I found that use traditional cotton, not organic cotton, not recycled cotton. Cotton is literally one of the most unsustainable fabrics out there because of how water intensive and chemical intensive and how bad it is for how the crop is farmed, like the actual land it's farmed on. So many reasons not to use it. crazy that Everlane is making so many of these styles with normal cotton, and it's multiple colors in multiple sizes of all the products I've listed. I'm not going to take the time to look at all of their products to do a percentage breakdown. It'd be crazy if I did. Kind of want to, but that's not worth my time. But this is just like a really good example of even just one fabric. I haven't even looked at like all of their products, but that is a sign that they're greenwashing. Let's put it this way. People think Everlane, oh my god, ethically made, and they're probably using more sustainable materials. I'm gonna buy their stuff. And by trusting a brand's claims of sustainability, we don't really, I think most consumers, I'm not gonna say we, because I definitely do my research, most consumers will assume things that they're buying from Everlane are made better, produced more sustainably, all of that stuff. When you actually do some research, you realize that that's not the case, and that is greenwashing. And I hope that they choose not to use cotton in their fabrics, or decide not to use cottons in their future releases, and all the other fabrics that are unsustainable, like this Japanese go weave that's actually just triacetate. And we need to hold them accountable for these things. Like half of their newest arrivals are made of just normal cotton. That's crazy. I need to make a post about that. I do still have other things that I would say are things that I would buy, like their denim that's made in the Satex factory, or some of their like recycled fabric options I think are really cool when you dig into like the actual process behind it. I will leave that for you guys to continue to research, but I really just wanted to call that out because that's insane. I didn't expect to find so many, and I haven't even spent that long on the page. I literally just scrolled through a few of their new arrivals. So also an upcoming influencer campaign that I declined, but know that they're working on one and inviting influencers to talk about how great Everlane is and to feature products. So if you see your fellow favorite influencers post videos or Instagrams, please call them out, educate them, reconsider following them, because I'm sure like a lot of people have been talking about Everlane. It's not hard to spot the controversies or not know what's happening. Like I doubt that like people would be accepting and be naive enough not to know about what's going on. So my goal for this video is just to share and expose more of this, to reach as many people as possible, because it makes me really sad to see a lot of consumers who just aren't aware continuing to buy from these brands because they don't know better. So please share this video or talk about this with your friends, share the resources, share Ex.Wives Club's Instagram posts and your stories, and let's push Everlane as consumers, because collectively we have a voice and we have so much power. And I believe that the more we can like share and expose this and educate our fellow consumers, the more we can demand change. I do want to say that Everlane is a pretty big company. They produce a lot, and there are pros and cons to that too from a sustainability standpoint. I'm always going to go back to, let's try to support small BIPOC owned brands first. I feel like they're the ones who we can trust the most when it's not such a big brand driven by capitalism. It sucks when things like the pandemic hits, because it's these small brands that suffer the most and often have to close down. If you've been following me for a while, you know that my goal is just to inspire you guys to shop more consciously and sustainably, and I'm also learning, and I'm not ever here to judge anyone because I don't know your circumstance, but I really hope that I can continue to inspire people not to shop fast fashion, to thrift more, to just make more conscious decisions to the best of your ability. Because again, I don't know anyone's circumstance. If you've watched to the end of the video, thank you so much. I'm sure this is the long one. I hope this was helpful. I hope that you could learn about what's going on. Let's continue to hold all the brands we choose to support accountable and to these really high standards, because we as consumers need to keep doing the research and make better buying decisions. I just uploaded this video on how to spot greenwashing and racist brands. Highly recommend watching that. I share a checklist of things to look for, literally laid out examples. So if you're looking for ways to be a more conscious and better shopper, please check that out. It's a long video, so I also like talk through everything, but if you just want to read the blog post and download the checklist, it's all linked in that video, so I'll leave that linked here. I'm gonna leave it at that. I hope you guys enjoyed.